Guess what? I already pushed record. Good morning.
You push record, we're recording.
I love to do that to you now.
Ah, boy. Well, hey, how are you?
I'm good. And
Great.
Guess what we're not doing today?
Oh, boy. There's a whole lot of things I'm hoping for, but what is the one thing we're not doing on your list?
A garage sale.
Thank you, Lord.
Or listing things online and trying to sell stuff that nobody needs anymore. Because it has been a summer of change for our family, right?
Yeah, quite a bit of change. It's amazing, actually.
It is. Because 4 of our family units have been involved in an actual relocation, a move.
Yeah.
So, yeah, including your mom and dad.
Yes.
Who moved from a very large home in Atlanta. They have moved to a facility where, as your mom says, I don't have to ever cook again if I don't want to.
Yeah. And, you know, when you're 88 years of age, which Mom is, Dad's 89, and you're headed toward 90, you know, there ought to be a point at which there are things that you, quote, don't have to do or don't need to do anymore.
I wonder if they need a roommate.
I'm jealous. I mean,
jealous.
I know you are because you.
About?
Well, I'm just thinking about the 24/7 amenities that you have in an assisted living facility,
including, I believe, a frozen yogurt machine. Anytime you want.
That's really what I was thinking about.
But I know you were.
As a 9, I'm thinking I could have a snack anytime I wanted a snack. And those of you out there that are 9s are like, amen.
Okay, it's a self-preservation 9.
Oh.
Yes.
I got to be more Pacific.
Yes. Okay, so there was your mom and dad.
Yep.
And then my son and his wife they just outgrew their space.
Yes.
So they moved to another place in Atlanta.
As in, we keep having children.
Well, yes.
That helped a lot when they had another little one.
Well, that's my daughter. That's our daughter, whatever.
Well, I'm just saying, that happened.
Yes, all of them.
That happened to Kevin and Alex.
Yes, they had Winnie, and then Shay and Eric had Hadley, a new one. And they outgrew their space. And then the oldest, Ryan, and his wife, Aaliyah, moved from from L.A. back to New York.
Yes.
And, okay, all of these on the outside look like they were different reasons for moving, but the truth is, all of them were the exact same reason because where they were didn't fit anymore.
Required change.
Right.
Different kinds of change for different reasons, right?
It was all.
Some had to change career, like Ryan and Aaliyah. It was a career change.
Right.
And in terms of the kids, it had to do with more of a relational thing, as in we have more actual family members.
Yes. There are more in the room.
Yes.
And so what I'm trying to say is we go through these times in life where things just don't fit anymore. For example, for some reason, the dryer keeps shrinking all my clothes.
Yeah, that's happened to me many times.
I don't understand what's going on. But the point is sometimes things just don't fit anymore. It might be a career. It doesn't fit who you are as you mature in life. A belief system or a relationship. Sometimes you outgrow a relationship.
Or I might say you outgrow where the relationship has been.
That is
I don't want anybody to think if you outgrow the relationship's over. In other words, no, it could be, but it's also an opportunity, as you're going to talk about later.
Absolutely. I'm glad you clarified that because that's you don't just drop relationships like moving on.
Yep.
Although sometimes if they are not healthy, but that's a counseling issue, if you ask me.
That's more for something a therapist would discuss with us. Yeah.
But the question I'm asking is, what happens when we keep trying to squeeze into those tight jeans or exist in a space that doesn't fit any longer?
Absolutely. I mean, that goes all the way back to concepts of growth and outgrowing. Most people are familiar with the phrase that you can't put new wine in old wineskins, and there's a reason for that.
It is. Let me give you an example of this. Yes,
okay.
New wine, old wineskins.
Yeah.
So I went to a small Christian college a long time ago, and you could not have alcohol. Now, that's probably still a rule in a lot of this, fundamental or Christian colleges, but it was not just forbidden. You would be kicked out if you were caught drinking it off campus or anything. But a girl who lived 2 doors down in our dorm, her grandmother made up a batch of homemade wine over the Christmas holiday.
Yeah.
And she put it in these plastic jugs. Honestly, I'm pretty sure they were old Clorox jugs.
Oh my gosh.
I know. But they were, they had that little, remember, like, you put that little brown jug in the handle. But they were so easy to carry and to sneak into a dorm because they just looked like Clorox bottles.
Oh.
So what a grandmother. But anyway, she put them back in the back of her closet over the Christmas, once she got back from the Christmas holiday. And honestly, I think she just forgot about them because as Lubbock, Texas tends to do, it got very hot. I guess the wine started fermenting.
Oh, yeah.
And one day, we all heard this boom.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, talk about it didn't fit anymore, outgrowing your old wineskin. It literally blew up all over.
And Jesus would have said, I told you. That's hilarious.
I think that's what the faculty
So did
said.
she get kicked out, I guess?
Oh, yes, she got kicked out. I think it was just for a semester, but, because you had to make an example.
Well, sure.
So, no, that was just a side note. Again, one of my real experiences. But this is back to our outline of what happens when we begin to evolve. And old ways, they don't fit. No matter how hard you try to ignore the discomfort, sometimes that's what happens when you want to hang on to an old way, an old thought, something that has just become a habit, until one day, boom. Yeah. And there she blows.
Yeah, that's right. And that's, again, going back when we talk about our relationship, the reason why, if you talk on a constant basis, you are noticing early in the process, not after there's been a huge boom. Hopefully, the more you talk and communicate, the more likely it is that you can avoid the explosion part.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The big blow up. It is.
But if you do, and sometimes you're unconscious of what's going on in the relationship, and you're not aware of it until there is a big boom. But you're right. That's the principle behind it.
Yes. So I got to thinking about back in I think it was the 90s, they had these things called the Magic Eye, those 3D pictures.
Back in the 90s.
Like it's 1999.
Yeah. And? So what are you talking about?
Do you remember those pictures?
What are you talking?
The 3D pictures.
Oh, the Magic Eye.
Yes, and you could stare at it.
Yeah, and I had a harder time with those. Maybe that tells you something about me. But yeah, the longer you stare at it, you
can see the picture that's hidden.
Yes. It's not apparent at first.
No, it just looks like a bunch of, repeating patterns over and over.
Pixels and lines.
Yes, and then you stare at it. Oh my gosh, it was so frustrating because I couldn't see it at first.
Right.
And you kind of feel dumb. But anyway, once it comes into focus and you see it, then you can't not see it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. That is the way it works. Yes.
Yes. And so I compare that to what happens when you see a truth. And even though you may not want to admit it, you can't unsee it.
Yes. Right.
And the truth is, the more you wake up to who you are, the more unbearable it becomes to be who you are not.
Oh, that's good. So what you're saying is that this worst case, something's exploded, or best case, I'm beginning to feel uncomfortable and whatever, that's actually a necessary part of our growth process. And that we can take these things as something that shouldn't be happening, or we can say, oh, this is a disaster that this did happen.
Right.
Or we can say, all this is telling me in my life is that it's time for some growth.
Right. And if we just knew not to be afraid of this, that when we start experiencing this discomfort of, I don't see it that way anymore.
Right.
I'll talk about a beautiful book that I love. I was given it many years ago. It's the Tao Te Ching, and I'm sure many of you know about the Tao. It's 81 verses that are just really about the nature of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love Dr. Wayne Dyer, and I'm so sad he passed on, but he wrote a book called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, and it was based on the 81 verses of the Tao. And I had it on my iPod, which I still have, and I still listen to it because I don't know how to get it off of my iPod onto my iPhone, but that's
a different kind of change. That's a different kind of change. We won't talk about technological change today because that's a sore spot with me too.
Yes, and it still works, and it's hot pink, and it's so cute. Yeah,
so it works.
It does, and so I've walked around countless hours and miles listening to the Tao because I think it has some wonderful wisdom.
Oh yeah.
Oh, but one of the verses just says, if you realize that all things change, then there is nothing you will try to hold on to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's very powerful. Very powerful. If you realize all things change, there's nothing you will try to hold on to. It's that holding on to the old jeans, holding on to the old wineskins, holding on to the old whatever it is, that refusal to move forward.
Things that we just grew up with. Well, that's the way my family's always done it.
Yes.
Or this is the way we've always believed. This is the way we've always voted.
Right.
My grandparents, my parents, until one day you begin to have your own thoughts and your own experiences and go, I don't just believe it because that's what's been handed down.
And you shouldn't be upset about it. You should realize what the Tao is saying. Basically, there's no reason to try to hold on to things. There's only a pursuit of what should be the next thing.
Right.
Okay.
And some changes are easier. Like if I have to change my old station wagon to a little Corvette, I can handle that change.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have a little Corvette.
Right. Or a station wagon.
Or station wagon. No.
Or past those days.
But it seems that those changes are when our thinking doesn't fit anymore, those are the ones that bring about the strongest resistance. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I used to, we don't have any problem. Here's a silly example of saying, I used to believe there was an actual tooth fairy, but I don't believe that any longer. Can I tell you a story about the tooth fairy?
Yeah. I like story time. So let's insert story time here.
This is so cute.
Yeah.
So we have two grandsons, and one of them is a little older than the other. And Caden, the younger one, said something about the tooth fairy. And Leon, the older one, whose mother is Alex, Leon told Caden, no, my mom's the tooth fairy.
Oh.
Right. So Caden was like, oh, Aunt Alex is the tooth fairy?
Wow. What an amazing coincidence that the tooth fairy is actually part of our family.
What are they?
Caden. Oh, that's cute. That's awesome.
No, we don't have
any
so funny problem when we move beyond the mythic or magic age of a child, and it doesn't fit with our evolved consciousness at some point. But it's that ego.
And I was going to say as well here that's something that we don't think about or think twice about with kids. we know children grow up. You're supposed to grow up. One of the things that popped in my head was that, growing up as a kid, you're used to getting what we used to call, I don't know what they call it now, report card. And you took your report card home, and it showed how you were progressing in a variety of different fields in different ways, and whether you were paying attention, get along well with others, and all those other ridiculous things that they reported on me. And so
I always had that in on needs improvement.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, she's a little chatty.
Yeah.
I could get all A's in all the, reading, writing, arithmetic. But, yeah, there's always that N.
Well, I wish that's the only N that I got. I got different kinds of grades. And the point is, though, that you say, well, yeah, we need indicators. We need to stop and check to see how the growth is going.
Yes.
And we do this with kids, and we don't even think twice about it. We encourage kids to change. We encourage kids to grow in that. We're not just trying to use a report card as a punitive system to say we are going to punish you unless or if. So we accept this with kids. Right. But it's kind of a funny thing, once we move into adulthood, what's happening there, right?
Oh, and that's the thing. People say, what's happening? What's happening to you? You don't fit into our group anymore. You've changed.
Yes.
And so it's what you're saying. If we say that to a kid, oh, you've changed since the third grade.
Exactly. But once we enter into adulthood.
Right. It's our thoughts, our thinking, and our ego that feels the need to defend.
Yeah.
Even where we don't fit anymore.
Yes.
And you'll encounter a lot of resistance a lot of times from outside, but first it's going to start in your own mind, that resistance.
Yeah. Yep. It's easy to get attached to your thoughts, right?
Yes.
And once you become attached, what that means is you're going to find yourself defending where you are. And so typically, I can tell you there have been many times, I'm going to say everyone listening has had the experience of being in an argument with someone, and perhaps it's in a marriage relationship, perhaps it's with a friend, whatever. You're in the argument, you're defending your position, and the whole time you're doing it in your mind, you're wrong. While you're doing it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you've done that before. Oh, no, wait, I have to.
Yeah, yes. I was just thinking back to all the times you did that. But
yes.
And here we are, right? Now this is a discussion we're having about no, you did it, no, you did it. But the point of it is that there's something that happens with us and our identity once we become adults, and it's really important that we maintain what we've identified with, because it's almost an indication that if I'm wrong about that shows that I've got some kind of weakness. I've got some kind of flaw. Wait a minute. I have to admit that I got a problem with my thinking or some way of seeing or my perspectives. And we've inherited the idea that that's problematic.
Oh, I know. Where it should be exciting.
Yes.
Anytime you move up a grade level, go back to the kids.
Yeah.
They go from the 4th to the 5th or whatever. Get a college education, get your diploma.
Yeah.
We're excited. We celebrate those steps, those next growth steps. But you're right. You're right. Once it becomes like we should be set in all of our knowledge by the time we graduate.
Or the way we've always done things in our marriage is just the way we always do things, or the way I do things is the way I do things. And how dare you insinuate that maybe I need to change on something?
Exactly.
How dare you insinuate that perhaps I am in need of growth in some way or another? And that's what we call a disagreement. And again, a disagreement can be either a real disaster if taken to a certain extreme, or it can be a way of seeking. And that's another old saying, that the key to life is to seek, to ask, to knock. That is a principle of embracing change, actually looking for change. Because the relationship, your marriage is going to be better if you will look for change instead of sitting there defending everything. And even if you come out at the same place, if you're seeking change, the first thing you're going to do is, I'm going to listen to everything you have to say. I might respond to that, and we may come to an agreement that nothing I did in particular required some change, or I may realize, yeah, it does require a change on my part. But when you're seeking change, you're open. You're open to listen. You're open to hearing other perspectives.
Exactly. And that in itself, whether it's what you said, you may not come out at a different, actual action place, but the fact that you have opened your mind to having these discussions and looking for is a move forward.
Yes.
You said something, I don't know, you said something about children, but it's what I don't remember exactly what you said, but it's why it's so funny. And they make commercials about, here's how you act with the first child.
Yeah.
And here's how you end up, with the second or third or whatever. And those things that you were so firm in your mind. I will do this. I won't do this.
Yeah.
This is the way you raise a child. By the time you have your third or fourth, you're like, you know what? They're going to be okay.
Yeah. And for all you that have just had your first one, don't freak out. You can stay just the same as you are now and never change. So don't worry and don't freak out that you have to change. You'll figure that out later. But be okay today with where you are.
Your second or third one will open that mind thinking for you.
It will.
Okay. So what I wanted to do is, I know we've used spiral dynamics several times on this podcast, but what I love about correlating spiral dynamics and the Enneagram is that they are both maps that you can clearly see how you have evolved, how humanity has evolved, and our thinking has changed. And so what I was wanting to do, just hand you the mic. I'll probably go get a cup of coffee for a few minutes.
Yeah, make it quick.
Yeah. No, I want you to just give maybe one line or so for each level and what we thought at one time. And civilization doesn't think that way anymore.
Yes.
So take it away, Doug King.
Well, I think, again, to your point, we're reminding everybody who may not be familiar with spiral dynamics that spiral dynamics is a model that takes into account collectives, groups, and cultures, whereas when you move to the Enneagram, you're talking about the individual, how an individual evolves and grows. And in the spiral, of course, all humanity started out in that archaic phase. And really, the only thing we were concerned about was whether or not we could survive. We had to do all the things it took to survive. And so it was very much about the self and self-centered, because if it wasn't, then we wouldn't survive and nothing else would matter. But by the same token, the famous saying is that no man is an island. And so as the archaic began to evolve, there was the formation of the tribal age. And when folks began to congregate and live their life conditions out in the tribe, it was now not just me and my survival, but also the survival of those around me who were part of my tribe. And in that initial level, the tribe was purely genealogical, biological. That's as far as my thinking went at that point. It didn't go beyond that. But as the tribe became a system that sometimes was oppressive. I need to get out on my own. I need to move into my own world. People begin to come into contact with other tribes. You then move from the tribal to the warrior phase. Why? Because you were taking what you thought was a position that should be defended, a way of doing life that should be defended, and you're running into people who do things differently than you. And so at that point, you enter the warrior age because everyone's fighting about the way that change should happen or what should be done.
Am I correct in my history that the first two were the Hatfields and McCoys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
go on.
And I know that because I was born in West Virginia, and that's where the Hatfields came from. So that also explains a little bit about me.
Yeah.
So now you know, why I have this temptation to go that direction. But after the warrior phase, you change your thinking. Cultures changed their thinking. They moved into the traditional age. Why? Because the thinking then evolved to, hey, we need law and order. We need structure. We need a society that can operate in safety and security. And so the traditional age entered empires and institutions, law and order, and that was, again, another change in the cultural collective consciousness. And after they did things the same way over and over for a number of centuries after centuries, we got to the realm where people began to ask the question, isn't there a new and better way of doing what we've been doing? That's change, and that introduced modernity. And in modernity, you have all kinds of inventions because people said, isn't there a better way to plow the field? Mm-hmm. Isn't there a better way to tell time? Isn't there a better way to get around than in a wagon? All the way up through the technology we're on right now, our iPhones, etc. All of modernity was, we really need to think about embracing change and having more change and not doing it the same way. Maybe there's a better way to do it. But modernity, because its focus was on inventions and technologies and those kinds of things, it really wasn't helping out with regard to, again, relationships. So postmodernity is saying, let's bring relationships back into the picture, but not like it was in the tribal where it's only your own biological family. Let's make it that we should all on the planet coexist, and we should have a world-centric view of justice, non-discrimination, equality, etc.
And that's where we began talking about the global family, I guess was in this age, right?
That's it. That's where you're going into the global family. And so that's evolution. That's all the way from archaic man to where we sit today in postmodern times, trying to find a way to expand our thinking, to change, to grow, so that we can be relational with all people on the planet.
But we are moving into the next phase, albeit slowly.
That's right. I mean, the next step up from that is the integral stage.
And the reason this stage is coming along is because of our change in thinking.
Yes, that's right.
Inclusivity.
Yes. And in other words, we can't just say that we want to be inclusive, which is good, and then turn around and say, except for people that are trailer trash or people that are ignorant or people that don't get what we are saying, and they're not included. So again, that's even further in the consciousness development today of how is it that we face our future challenges as a global society.
Yes.
Whereas with you're talking Enneagram, you're talking about me as an individual, and remind me what is the growth trajectory there in the Enneagram?
Well,
because there's so many aspects to the Enneagram. What are the aspects that relate to personal movement and consciousness?
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about that. But again is to say, you look at patterns in nature. You look at patterns in where we're using spiral dynamics, and we expect to see growth in nature. We expect to see humanity move up in our collective consciousness.
Right.
We expect that because we look back on history and see how it happened. Mm-hmm. So the question is, should we be surprised that these patterns might be mirrored in our individual consciousness?
Exactly.
Right.
Good point. Yes.
That is, to me, the connection.
Okay.
And why I love the work of the Enneagram. And it is deep work if you keep on this. But it gives you a map, like when you're at the mall. You know what the mall is, babe?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I went there once.
Actually, I can't hardly stand it anymore. But
yeah,
you could look at the directory thing, and there was, or on a map, whatever.
Yeah.
Six Flags. And it says, you are here.
Right. I got that part. In other words, I was like, yeah, I know where I am.
I know where you
It's that other, that's the part that, yeah.
Now, even at Six Flags, where's the exit?
Exactly. Where's my car?
But I love this because you can look at times past. We can look where we were when we believed in the tooth fairy. We can look at times of when we were reactive in our thinking, in our relationships, early dating and early relationships. You can look back and go, oh, I see what I did then. Mm-hmm. And I was going to try to take a couple of the different types or numbers, but I'm just going to go right now with type 8.
Okay.
Because this is just, the type 8 is often called the challenger.
Yes.
And we all know, or we've worked for, or been in relationship with people who are not healthy in all numbers.
Right.
So this is not to pick on the 8. I'm just using this one for an example because I think it's very eye-opening to see where you are in the levels. So in the Enneagram, you have 9 levels of growth or development. And everybody has the same unhealthy. So if you're at your very, very lowest level of consciousness, everybody is in a pathological state. It's a very destructive state. And that's, so when I say this about the 8, it's not just the 8. This is all of us if we are not on a path of growth. But what I find fascinating about the 8, so in the unhealthy stage, like in the lower third, the growth, the development growth is in 3 units. So the first 3 levels would be unhealthy, and then you move up in level 6 and 5 and 4, and that would be more healthy, or actually just moderate. But when you cross over into level 3 and level 2 and level 1, you are tapping into your essence and you're most healthy.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's very much like in the collective.
Exactly.
Moving into an integrated or integral way of thinking.
That's why I think this is just a beautiful relationship. So if the type 8, in their very low level, they could be considered like a tyrant, ruthless, a ruler. And some of the examples of these type of rulers would have been Joseph Stalin or Fidel Castro or Napoleon, back in the days where their base desire was to survive, to protect myself and stay in control at any cost. And I will tell you, as you get into more of the study of the Enneagram, if you look at these, you will find that each number has their own way of defending who they are, what their thoughts are.
Sure.
And each one says at any cost.
Yes, of course.
So
yes.
Doesn't that go?
Again, that's back attachment. You brought that up. We're attaching. We're saying, no, this is my identity. I can't be destroyed.
So when you look back at the warrior age,
and that was just the way it was. They didn't know they were in the warrior age. You don't know you're pathological.
No, right. You don't see that. But at some point over time within our own thinking, we begin to confront our own ego, and we confront things that are not working in relationships most times. So as an 8 grows in their health, they can become very successful. Now, they did like the Wolf of Wall Street, and they call, the dominating power broker, willful and dominating. So you still have that ability to lead, but you're leading through force and domination. And I'm not going to go through each one of the levels, but I want to say, as the leader moves up, if this is a leader, moves up in their consciousness, they become a constructive leader. They want the people actually to feel secure, not dominated. And so one of the most beautiful examples of a healthy 8 compared to Joseph Stalin or Fidel Castro is Mother Teresa.
Wow.
How mind-blowing is that?
That's mind-blowing. I would not have thought of Mother Teresa as an 8.
Well, that's what...
But it makes sense when you say that.
Right. So to be able to lead with a not desire to just control at all costs.
Yeah.
So that the switch becomes to serve at all costs. She was strong. She was powerful in her will to get things done. And yet she was known as a servant.
Yes. She was growing again in that relational aspect. And as crazy as it sounds, actually all these pathologies, which most of us, granted, are living our lives at probably a more moderate level. Although there are people out there that, sometimes you get into a marriage and you find out there are some issues there that you didn't know until you were in the marriage. But for the most part, I mean, the conversations we're having today is that there's going to be two ways in these levels that you're talking about. One is that you're going to reach a point where it's unworkable.
Yes. Your
relationship's just becoming unworkable, or you can do it the other way, which is to seek on a daily basis to use tools like the Enneagram to learn about yourself, to learn about your spouse, significant other, your kids, whatever. And you can use these tools to learn more about the way to navigate your relational life. And then you will be far more likely to avoid the disasters that come from just living life and waiting till things become unworkable.
Or till it blows.
Till she blows in the back of the closet.
Yes. So as we've, discussed many times, all of life should be embraced as what's next? How can I grow even more? How can I move from trying to fit into an old paradigm and surrender to the beauty of growth without fear? And so as we wrap this one up, I'll remind you again, we are all on a beautiful life path that provides growth and relationship, which is what this is all about, if we are willing to put the ego aside for a minute and say, I want to be the best I can possibly be. In the meantime, keep on studying, keep on looking for the next chapter in your life, and always love who you are, because that's the best we can do is love our number. Till next time, have a great week.